Good evening, folks. Mike here, the Ashamed Canadian. Apparently, this is telling me that I've been on for 2 hours now. That's not true. I don't know what happened there, but I'm actually waiting for a couple people to stop in here. And Bo Under, how are you, brother? Anarchas, Josh Amherst, always good to see you, brothers. Just waiting on a few more people here. Can you guys hear me okay? Give me a one if my volume, my audio is okay. Much love from Billy. Ramen, oh, right on, Bo. Kadu, M-Star, how are you, love? Renetta, just just a couple more seconds here. I'm waiting for a few more people to show up here. This show is about the East Coast of Canada. Chris, how are you, brother? And not just about the East Coast of Canada, but Canada in general, but a lot of it's got to do with here in the East Coast. So just let me finish rolling this joint and we will start getting into this. Just so that everybody knows, I've let a few people already know. I did have to give up my cat. Penis with the family that loves him. If by chance I ever want him back, or I can always go get him, but it was just getting too hard on him. And he was, I felt that it was being cruel to him to keep him in a bag all the time, a carrying bag, and that him not getting out very much. So, and always moving around this summer, it was painful for me, but I had to give up Peanut. So I no longer have my cat. I miss him like crazy, but yeah, I don't have him anymore. Prairie Transparency. How are you? Okay, so so as most of you guys are aware, I've been an activist and for the human rights and the Privacy Act here in Canada since 1985. Fought to make change in it. Actually had changes made to the Privacy Act with the organizations that helped lobby to do it. Um, I did help start the very first needle exchange program in Canada in Toronto, with Street Health back in the late 80s. So I've been around this kind of stuff my whole life. And I've worked in Canada's largest men's shelter to one of Canada's smallest shelters. I've helped open up a couple of addiction recovery centers, helped open up a place called Street City in Toronto, which is now called Homes First Society. They call it Strong House. And, I've worked in Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, Regina, Thunder Bay, Hamilton, Toronto, Moncton, Halifax. So I've worked coast to coast doing this stuff, and working with the less fortunate in Canada is what I've dedicated my life to. So with that said, I had some problems with people I was living with. It went global, the problems I have with the people I was living with. I ended up getting arrested in my bedroom for breach of peace. That was not even a charge. So there's an ongoing investigation, stuff like that right now into that. I have filed formal complaints on that, haven't heard back, but that's the RCMP for you. So I leave Moncton, and the day I'm going to leave is June 30th, and which is the day that the Atlantic bubble supposedly opened up. That meant that you could cross over from Nova Scotia into New Brunswick and vice versa and into PEI without having to isolate or anything like that. So I go to Maritime Bus to get on the bus, and I was going to go to PEI. There's a YouTube friend that I was actually going to surprise and maybe do some filming over in PEI. That didn't work out. Sorry, Jason. But I then tried to go to Nova Scotia, and Maritime Bus refused to sell me a ticket to leave the province of New Brunswick, even though that day all the borders were open. They refused. So I went from Moncton down to St. John, spent the night in St. John, had to book the ferry. So I actually had to spend 2 days in St. John, because when I got there that night, I booked. I couldn't cross on Canada Day. I had to wait the next day to cross. So on July 2nd, I crossed, went into Nova Scotia and Digby, and went up, took the King's Transit. There's hey Josh, how are you, brother? So they have this bus line that goes from Weymouth to Wolfville, Nova Scotia. It's quite a long ways. It takes you right through pretty much the whole Annapolis Valley, through Berwick, Kentville, and all that, and brings you at Wolfville. And then I went from Wolfville to Windsor. I spent the night with friends in Windsor and went to Truro. And that's when I decided that instead of taking the money that I had and putting it on even a hotel room or anything like that, I had a couple $100. I decided that I was going to check myself into the local shelter and see if this town of Truro is as bad as what people have been telling me for years that have been in Halifax and that I've run into. So it was sort of like a summertime, nice out. It rained some days, but I ran into some nice people in Truro, don't get me wrong. But the services in Truro, Nova Scotia are just disastrous. First off, they only have one shelter in that whole area of for all of Amherst, pretty much all the way to Halifax. There's only one other shelter between Truro and Halifax, and it's sort of out of the way in New Glasgow. So I wanted to see what it was going to be like, and I bit my tongue. And it's not like I have a job to go to anymore because I can't really work. I wasn't supposed to work at the carnival, but I did. Some true colors come out. I was in the shelter. Literally jumped me first thing in the morning, and when the staff came by, they see me pushing him off of me, and I was barred for 48 hours. Well, that was on a Thursday, which means that I wasn't allowed to come back till a Saturday. So I go back on the Saturday. Now, my cat is still allowed to stay at the shelter, by the way. Okay, he's still there. I never ended up staying at the shelter again. They turns into you have to have some kind of, they have to do some kind of meeting or something. And I literally said, for what? I was literally protecting myself. And you're going to literally stand there and tell me that I'm not allowed to defend myself, and then you're going to use it against me and base right here. And they didn't care. That's the way the shelter system works in Truro. Now, they probably have, there's only 13 beds in the shelter total. And in the town of Truro, many people, where are they all in? 10 cities all over the place. And these are the people that are not included in the national stats when they do this homeless stats, and they're saying that there's 1.5 million people that are homeless in Canada. Well, that's because there's 1.5 million registered beds in Canada. That means like the shelters are working with the government to and put in their stats each month to show how many people are using the services, and that's so that they can get funding. There are a lot of shelters in Canada that are actually not registered shelters because they don't give that information to the government. They're just a private organization that opens up their doors and lets people stay there. That is almost double what the national average is. So we have 1.5 million registered beds, but we also have at least 1.5 unregistered beds. Now, we also have probably another 200,000 people that are sleeping in homeless camps across Canada. So we have just over 3 million people that are homeless in Canada, with a country with 33 million people, average, give or take a million. Isn't that like 10% of the population? Kind of seems that way. Maybe my math is wrong, but kind of seems that way to me. Which is bad. Justin Trudeau let in, what was it, 300,000 immigrants last year? And 90,000 so far this year? But what is he doing for the people here that are Canadian citizens that are living on the streets and living in these tent cities and that are looking for help, but the government won't give it, but they'll open up the doors and let other people come in, and then they wonder why we still have a Liberal government. One hand washes the other. You let 300,000 people into a country, they're going to vote for you. No, this is just 1 year, you know. He's been there, what, 5 years, been doing this? He's let in over almost 2 million people into Canada since he's been prime minister. And all these people are voting for him, especially if they want their relatives to come into this country. That's just the way politics is and the immigration laws here. You vote for the prime minister that brought you here, or nobody else is coming. Now, they won't tell you that outright, but trust me, it's implied. So we have just over 3 million homeless people, and we're letting in 300,000 people a year. Now, don't get me wrong, we do need immigration into this country, just like any other country. And we are a peaceful country, and we do open the doors for political refugees and that. But what we should never do, and I mean never do, is open the doors to people that went and fought against allies of ours, which is basically fighting against Canadians. And that's, I'm talking about the ISIS fighters that Justin Trudeau led in. So, you know, all this money that he's spending on doing this shit, and he's not doing anything down anywheres, and it's really showing bad here in the East Coast. Now, in Fredericton, New Brunswick, they have what's called the St. John House. It's supposed to be a shelter. But when you're there, you have to go to social services, and then they give you, while you're there, they'll give you a check, but you have to pay the shelter or you're kicked out and you can't stay there. Now, you can pay your $250 to stay there, and if you're not there at a certain time, you get kicked out, you lose your money, everything. They don't care. This is the way the shelters work. The only other place to stay for men is the out of the coal program that's run by the John Howard Society, which is basically COVID City. They have a hotel that they took over, and they're using that as an emergency shelter right now. So you get better service there than you do at an actual shelter that you're forced to pay money to stay at. So, and the St. John House, you would think it would be, some kind of privacy or that. All it is one big square opened area with a bunch of beds in a row. I think there's 3 rows of beds. It holds up to something like 30 people, 20 people. And you're all in one big dorm. That's where the TV is. That's where you eat. And the washrooms in the office are at the front. That's it. The soup kitchen is right behind the building. You have to go outside and around. It's an old hospital. The morgue used to be in the basement, and it used to be the laundry area up top for where the shelter is and that. But it's not a place where you would pay $250 a month to stay at. That's for damn sure. I'd rather spend the $80, $90, $100 and go buy a tent and live out in Tent City, which is probably one of the biggest in New Brunswick that I've seen, is the one in Fredericton. Spread all along. I was camped right in it for a few days. So I know firsthand what's there. I was actually right on the water. We had to move up the hill because the St. John River rose so much that where my tent was, it was like knee deep in water within 24 hours. So. So then you go to Moncton. Now, Moncton apparently has the largest homeless people counted in New Brunswick, with over 140 homeless people in Moncton, and growing daily, by the way. Now, they have a shelter there called Harvest House. I'm not going to let my personal agenda or my feelings about Harvest House get into this right now, because that's not what this is about. But Harvest House can hold up to 32 people. That's it. And then they have another one called the House of Nazareth, and it can hold something like 40 people. So you have 72 people. All the rest of them are living out front of shelters and that tents out there. City residents are complaining about the shelters and like how bad it is, what they're doing to the neighborhoods with all the condoms and everything laying around and needles laying around, with the daycare center like literally a block away from this place. So with no regard for the public safety or anything, the people say that once it's out on the street, it's none of our concern. But they don't understand that you've got to take responsibility for your clients if you want to remain in a neighborhood, especially with being so controversial as having a shelter is in any city. So they do have a lot of problems there. The mayor there, Don Arnold, is doing absolutely nothing about it. in the last few years, they've closed down rooming house after rooming house after rooming house. And where all these were, next thing you know, you get all these new apartment buildings being built that people can't afford in Moncton because there's, they don't have a job. COVID knocked the shit out of everybody. All this fear mongering that they did, it really fucked up the economy everywhere. Now, Moncton, for a few years, has been one of the fastest growing cities in North America. The problem with that is that they're bringing industry there, but they're not doing anything about helping the people there that actually live there. They rather just raise the taxes, hope that people can't afford the taxes, repossess the homes, tear them down. At one point they wanted to put a CFL stadium right downtown, right by the Alliant Tower in downtown Moncton. They ended up building it out at the University of Moncton, that big stadium, but that was planned for right downtown. And Dawn Arnold, she's not doing anything to help. Yes, she's brought in a lot of businesses. Yes, it might bring in tax money in that. But what about your people that are there that are voting for you? You walk by people like they're nobody. Politicians need to realize that if it wasn't for every bottle of Pepsi, Coke, whatever you drink, that is bought in your province and the taxes are collected, it's paying for all your politicians in that province. No, not all of them, but that tax money goes towards paying for politicians. People that work that are losing 28 to 35% of their paychecks right off the top because they're in certain tax brackets are paying all that money in taxes to pay for politicians to look out for our best interests, not the interests of corporations. And that's what Dawn Arnold has been doing, is she's rather be kissing ass to corporations than actually working on the problem that Moncton has right now. They're in a little bit, I will get into what I think would benefit a lot of cities across Canada. Obviously, it would work right across Canada. So anyways, getting back to the Moncton thing, they have a youth shelter there. I don't check on the stats for youth shelters, mainly because of it pisses me off to see the stats for the youth shelters, and so I just don't look at those ones. But just to see how many people are homeless here. Now, I was a property manager in Moncton for a couple of years. I managed an awful lot of properties, and I rented out a lot of them. I have a few of them on one of my first Facebook pages. If you look it up, it's Mickey labeled, and you'll see a bunch of houses. You look in there. One of the houses I managed it had 10 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms, living rooms, 34 acres, 28 by 18 outdoor pool, completely fenced in. Over 100 maple trees tapped. the place was just gorgeous. And it was exactly 1.5 kilometers on the same road as the Magnetic Hill concert site, because I used to do camping. I did it for the Bon Jovi and the AC/DC concerts that year. I did camping at that place and had like all up in the trees. People were camped all up there, all across the big front yard and that. So I know what property rates, what your average rental rate should be. But then you have the New Brunswick rentalsman. But so the average 3-bedroom house I would rent in Moncton was anywhere from $800 to $950 a month plus utilities. It's pretty good. Usually it's a family that moves in anyways. They need like a 2-3 bedroom. At the house up on Ammon Road, the 10-bedroom house, I rented that out as rooms, and I had nothing but flight students in it for the longest time. And each person was paying about $400 a month, except for one person that had the master bedroom, and they were paying $650. I tried to keep the rents affordable there. I turned my personal house into a rooming house just to help people out. And I also had another rooming house over on Archibald Street with 14 rooms in it over there and bed sitting rooms and that. So I know the average rental price. And in the last couple of years, it's just gotten out of hand. You have what rooming houses you do have in Moncton are run by a crooked organization. Unless you can find like a private house or something like that that's willing to rent you a room, there are no respectable rooming houses in the Moncton area at all. They're just slumlords. Trust me, I know them all. I've been in the Moncton area working doing this shit since 2005. So I have a little bit of experience in the New Brunswick area. I am an East Coaster. I am from a small little town called Tantallon. And it's just outside. It's part of the city of Halifax now, but it was Halifax County on Peggy's Cove Road. So, but Dawn Arnold, if she doesn't do something soon, that city's going to collapse. And it's not going to look good for her at all. Then you got St. John. Now, they have a couple of shelters here. It's you don't hear too much of tent cities or anything around here in St. John. They do have a bit of a dirty police force here, but aren't they all? But it's not as bad as the rest of New Brunswick. The rents here are, they seem fairly adequate. The problem is the vacancies, that's all. But other than that, it's hilly, uh, beautiful historic city. And it seems like they want to help here. Then we have Cape Breton. Now, I had raised $1,800 in gas to do the trip to Cape Breton. Mainly because it cost me $400 in a fucking taxi because of the guy that I was traveling with had a big dog and he couldn't take it on the bus. So I had to wait for him and hope for 50% at least of the taxi fare. Never got any of it. I went through just over $4,000. I think he raised 400, and all he wanted to do is coke, so I had to get rid of him. So it was, we get to Cape Breton, and I'm going to check on what the shelter system is like here. They do have a shelter there. But again, you have to pay to stay there, or you can't stay. And there's only a certain amount of people allowed in the building, and that's it. You pay to stay there. It's more like they have hostels, travelers' hostels. Well, that's what shelters are trying to turn into, is hostels. And they don't understand the fact that they're there as an emergency service. So they don't care. It's the almighty dollar. It's not about helping your fellow man anymore. So your average rent there is, again, the same as I found in Truro, $1,000 a month for a one bedroom. If you can find a room there, I've seen them. The cheapest one I seen was $650 a month for a fucking room. Like, come on, people. How are people supposed to fucking survive and get off the street when you have rents this high? The services are so spread out that you have to have a car now. What if you can't drive? I legally can't drive because of my narcolepsy. I turned my driver's license. So I am at a dilemma now. A lot of these small towns don't have transit systems. So how do you get around now? So now it's the $25, $40 cab rides one way just to go to an appointment. So how do you do that? You can't. So I didn't like, I have family from the Sydney Mines area. I went looking for them. None of them wanted to contact me. I said, screw it. I've had enough for Cape Breton. It's just too expensive. It's too, like you don't get any service whatsoever there at all unless you know somebody, or unless you have $10,000, $20,000 camper being pulled. behind your 4x4 that, that you have because you're disabled and you don't have a job and you can't afford, I need to light this joint. So then we go to Digby. And down in Digby, it was Lobster Bash week. It was supposed to be the Wharf rally. And that was canceled. So they did a Lobster Bash. This is Labor Day weekend now. And I used to work in Digby. That I actually helped open up an addiction recovery center down in Rossway, just down the Digby Neck. And that's where I was actually staying when I was in Digby. And the place is empty, condemned. Anyways, I was there. So Digby, there was nothing for anybody. So Digby is a port city. It's the scallop capital of the world. And it has absolutely nothing. There are homeless people there. They live in tents and coach surf and stuff like that. But there's no shelter, no drop-in center, no nothing there for anybody. Anything that was there is closed. To talk to the Salvation Army, anybody from the Salvation Army, they have a thrift store there. But if you want to talk to Family Services or that, you have to book an appointment, and hopefully they come in to town that week. If not, you got to go to a different town to meet up with them. And it's you get to run around so much that you just want to give up. And that's why so many people are giving up on trying to find anything, because they keep getting the runaround. So I helped some people during the Lobster Bash make a bit of money, help them set up, tear down their tents and stuff like that, and do some other little things. Made a few $100, enough so that I can come back to New Brunswick, because I want to keep going north and I want to try and get into Quebec. That didn't work out. So we come over to St. John, spend the night in St. John. The next morning, we end up costing another $150 for a taxi. Oh, and when we came from Cape Breton to Digby, we had to take a cab because of his dog. That cab ride was $600. So now there's $1,000 right there just in 2 cab rides, and spent another $200 in taxis running around in that city for a day and a half, and another $300 on a motel room because he didn't want his dog to be outside. And then we take the taxi from St. John to Fredericton, another $150. And I'm like, you know what? I'm really sick and tired of this. I work hard for the money that I had, and you want to just spend it like it's nothing because you got a fucking dog. And So we get there in Fredericton. We set up. I spent a couple of days in the tent city there, and I already knew about what the shelter system was like, but I had to. There was an update, pretty much a different building that they used for the John Howard Society out of the coal program. Again, the John Howard Society is helping people, but they have to find landlords that are willing to take on these clients. You have people that are homeless, that are in the shelter, that qualify for what's called a subsidy. So you only pay so much and the government pays the rest. And it's because they don't have enough housing of their own. And they're always trying to get money to build more housing, but it never comes through. But they need to build more affordable housing. They don't have that, so people have to go after landlords to see if they would work with them to do the guarantee payments and stuff like that. A lot of landlords won't do that. One major landlord that will not do that and is probably the largest, well, I believe it is the largest in Atlantic Canada, and it's called Killam Properties. They own about 20% of all the apartment buildings in Moncton, at least. And they won't help out a lot of Fredericton is Killam Property. St. John here, it's Killam Property. They won't do subsidies. They won't work with people, anything like that. So, and then just to get around, you guys may think this is petty, but just to get on a city bus is $3 in a small city down here. New Brunswick has the highest dairy prices in Canada, where everybody else is, yeah, well, Graham, they're pretty much doing the same thing here in Canada. I've been trying to tell people this for years and years and years, and people just say, well, who cares? Who cares? They're just homeless. They're just bums. But people don't realize that could be your brother, that could be your sister out there, that could be your mother or father out there, your sons or daughter. One or two paychecks and you could be homeless. It's not fun going around knowing that you're homeless and people looking down on you all the time. Oh, you're just a bum. You're just a bum. I played it out. I had a big beard and everything, and I sat on a fucking street corner for almost 4.5 weeks to raise the money to get the hell out of there. It didn't work the way I planned, but I did get out of there. Yeah. No, it's, I mentioned at the beginning, and I mentioned to a few other people on a few other broadcasts here today that I have an idea that would work and that would help ease the homeless situation. The government wants to throw money at mental health, and they just want to throw it into buildings, make all these extravagant buildings, pay all these people to just sit around and see maybe a client here, a client there. That's not what people need. They don't need to walk or well, there's no transit, so walked or took a taxi. And if you want to see your mental health worker, you would have to walk all the way downtown Truro. Now, if you were in, like, outside of like Bible Hill, and it's not that far, Salmon River or Millbrook, you would have to come into downtown Truro. There's no buses. So it's a long walk or take a cab. People miss their appointments because they can't travel that far. People are spread out. They're put out in the boonies where there's nothing for housing because that landlord can't get people to fill up his apartments. So he signs a contract and, here, bring them whoever, I don't care. But the government wastes too much money with on staff, which brings me back to Truro, which really pisses me off. I had the picture, but my camera was stolen yesterday here. I had the picture of the woman. Her name is Michelle, and she works at Hub House. Or, sorry, her name is Melissa, and she works at Hub House. And she sat there in front of a bunch of people at the homeless shelter and bragged about that she got a $7 an hour raise, retroactive back 4 weeks, where she gets like $3,200 back after taxes and that. And she is bragging about this and talking about how she's going to spend her money instead of actually doing her job that she was paid to do to begin with. And, tying up the whole fucking shelter system down there. It's it's the only shelter that you have to get wanded. They go through your pockets, they go through your knapsack, everything. And if you want to stay there, that's the rules. And metal detecting wand, everything. But like about $7 an hour raise in front of homeless people inside the homeless shelter, and you're not doing your job, and you were happy with the wage that you were making before you got the $7 an hour raise, what are you making now? It's got to be almost $30 an hour then, right? So we pay people like that too much money around and do nothing to help the people. So if the government were to have a piece of property And instead of having like Hub House on Prince Street, and or it's moving to a new location now, but wherever it is, from there, and then you got the mental health on the lower end of Prince Street, and then there's no drop-in center. Then you have the soup kitchen that's way up on the other side of town. You know, why wouldn't you merge all those together so that you have the shelter, a drop-in center, and soup kitchen, and your mental health services all in one building? But wait, you can even house people on the same property where they would have access to all of that help right there when they need it, instead of having to run around to all these different places. And we know that nobody works after 9 to 5. Everybody thinks that homelessness is just 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. You know, that's just because they work those hours. That's the only time they think that homelessness happens. But it's not. It happens 365 days a fucking year. You know? Do you know what it's like for people to be homeless on Christmas with no family? It doesn't matter if they're a drug addict or an alcoholic or whatever, there's still someone's family. And to be left alone and to be talked down to and not given any opportunities to get out of that situation, to at least have a warm roof over their head, you know, that's not right. And, you know, it would probably cost about $5, maybe $10 million for the initial build of the place and that. But it would help so many people that, you know, they would save money by, you know, they wouldn't have to have these big fucking buildings all across town. They could have all the services in one building. They would cut back to one hydro bill per se, and one property, only one property tax, only one sewer and water bill. You know, little things like that. People don't understand. They add up. What about the insurance you got to pay every month on those other buildings that you have? You know, that money can be used into helping the people. You know, yeah, the government might be putting people to work, but all they're doing is they're just masking the problem by putting more people and giving them titles like housing support workers. Like, it's kind of an oxymoron, actually, if you think about it. There's no real such thing as a housing support worker. You know, you have a housing worker that will help you find housing. But there's no such thing as a housing support worker in Canada. They don't come out to your place and see how you're living, see how you're doing, make regular checkups on you. That's what a housing support worker does. There's not many of those that I've seen anywhere across Canada. And trust me, I've been doing this for a long fucking time. And might have seen a half a dozen of true housing support workers. So if they were to have a building, you would have a hall on one side, a hall on the other on the main floor. On one side would be your drop-in center. On the other side would be your shelter. In the middle of the connection would be your mental health and services, and maybe a couple little other services that might be needed, like place to get your resume done, help you do it online, internet help with people. You know, a lot of people don't understand that. Like, yeah, kids nowadays are born with a fucking computer in their hand, but you know, I still remember having to take typing classes. Does anybody know what a typewriter is and what it was used for? Now it's all just done by computers, push buttons, send, fuck, here it is. Before, if we needed copies, we had to make sure that the carbon paper was in between, and you couldn't do more than 2 copies. So, I just think that if we were able to put all of our services together like that, where you would have the drop-in center, the shelter, the mental health services and stuff like that right there with the soup kitchen in the drop-in center, you know? And then on the top floors of each one of these halls, you build rooms the size of motel rooms. You put in a washer with a shower in that and a little kitchenette. You know, they have a microwave, a bar fridge and that. And your living area, TV, your bed and that. Make it look just like a motel, have the walkway outside and everything. And a little carbon paper. Yeah. So they would save. It might, like I said, it might cost $8-10 million for the initial building, but they would save that in the first 3 years. And this is a building that's going to be there for a while. That's going to actually help a lot of people, and because it's doing that, they would probably get tax breaks from it. Probably 0 property taxes, and get a break on the hydro. You know, you can apply for grants like that for places like this, and right now you know, you'll get it, but you gotta go out there and do it. You gotta have the balls to take the initiative to start it, and if you don't, then you're failing the people. And any politician that wants to stand up and fight for the people that are here, I will back you 100%. But I haven't found one yet, and I've been looking since 1985. And I still haven't found a politician that I would actually back, because they're all crooked. They don't give a shit about the common people, about the forgotten. And what happens? Now we have a crisis like what happened out west with all the indigenous people, all those poor kids. So now the Catholic Church writes a sorry note and says, "Oh, I deeply regret everything that had happened. Here's $30 million. That's nothing. Fuck, if I had it my way, I'd make sure that each fucking family got at least $5 million. for what they went through. Every living one that was in those residential schools, and all the people that had died, their families would get that money. Like, we cannot forget about a group of people, you know. And this is segregation 101, folks. Look at it, truly. We had segregation and slaves right up until what? I've seen some of it is in the 70s, growing up here in Nova Scotia, seeing segregation. So we had the African Americans that have been segregated since people have came to this country. They have gone after the natives and have done such damage to the natives, and people just forget about them. Oh, that group, they're black, who cares? Oh, they're native, oh, who cares? Oh, they're homeless, who cares? And that's the attitude that we're getting. And I'm not trying to put homeless any more or less or anything to make it equal or to what these individual groups have gone through. Because believe me, they went through their own shit that nobody else should ever have gone through, and nobody will ever go through, hopefully. But the same thing as I see happening. You know, people just, you know, they just walk by people. You know, people are in desperate need sometimes. Desperate need. You know, there's been a few people that made it look bad for people that are panhandling because they get up and they drive away in their expensive cars and stuff like that. That's not your average panhandler is, you know. Yeah, you do have a lot of them. They like to drink. Well, you know what? If you were on the streets and that's all you could do, you would want to fucking drink too. Just to forget about the shitty day that you're having because you don't have a goddamn roof over your head or a government that'll even help you. So yeah, they do have a drink. And sometimes they may get a little inebriated, whatever. But it's not a crime. People try to make it a crime. Well, he's drinking in public. He's fucking homeless. You're in his home, for fuck's sakes. Where's he going to go? Right? Of course he's in public. Of course he's drinking in public. But he doesn't have a place to go. You know? Then there are just some things that shouldn't be done on the street. And I agree with completely. Shouldn't be shooting up and shit like that, smoking crack out of, you know, all that shit. No. You want to walk down the street and puff a doobie? You know what? God bless you and fucking smoke one for me. But don't be sitting in a fucking, right on a park bench with a fucking needle in your arm or something like that. You know, there's safe injection sites now across Canada. And if there's not one in your town, maybe you should ask about it. Talk to your pharmacies. They will advocate for you if you're willing to work with them. But again, it takes a little bit of time. I've been fighting and fighting and fighting for a long time now. I'm not giving up, but I cannot do the big fight anymore. I will be doing some stuff on this channel still, but I am going to start going a different way. This is really dragging me down to the point where, you know, my health is in danger. And I figure if I'm going to do YouTube and stuff like that, yes, I still want to get the message out. Yes, I will still bring updates on what's happening in and around the areas that I live, or if there's been, you know, any news regarding anything that I've covered in the past, I will always come back and do little things. But after doing the 2 months that I did this summer and having to go through some of the things I don't even want to tell you, but I've literally had to sleep on the streets of Truro, no place to go. There is absolutely no services there whatsoever. When, you know, you have a problem with the shelter. It wasn't my fault what happened, but I was a victim of circumstance, I guess. So it's the trip all through Truro, all through Cape Breton, down through Digby, and this last few weeks with the carnival. I'm not feeling that well anymore, folks, and I can't do that intense shit anymore. I'll report on it, but I won't go under and go do what I just did ever again. Mentally, I was about to check myself into the hospital. That's how bad it was getting. And that's why I really needed this break. And it's been relaxing, but I won't be doing shit like that ever again. Not at my age anyways. I'll be 55 in January. And I'm going to end up just doing the Canadian talent search. Just look for CAP talent in some form on some platform. But I think going back into my true love of music and that it'll keep me calm. might live an extra few months. And, not as stressful. So with that said, I really hope that cities and towns would adopt what I propose to help the homeless situation in their towns. Remember, 90% of the homeless people that are out there are single people. Why do they need big apartments? Motel rooms? Motel room size? Great, you can put it, what's this, 12 by 15? Nice size, plus a bathroom. That's all a person needs, at least for, while you're waiting for something. But I am going to end this. And good to see everybody. Don't forget, no, I said don't forget and I forgot. Yes. I forget. Anyways, folks, have a great night. This is Mike. I am the Ashamed Canadian. And again, I will be look for CAP talent somewhere, so I'll have it. And you'll see a different side, a better side. Anyways, folks, good night. God bless. And we'll see you soon.